What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Alex Cuesta Show. How's everybody doing out there on this Wednesday, July 10th, 2024 for episode number 131? For those keeping score at home, we were not here last week. We were going to try and do a show. Didn't end up working out, and then it was the holiday, and me and Dave were like, We were going to go live on 4th of July, and I was like, that's not going to be a good idea. No one's going to watch that.
It's your fault.
That was my fault. I kind of just like passed out on 4th of July. We were going to do it, and then I sucked. So, but we are back this week. We're excited. We got a lot to get to, not a lot of time. So I want to jump right into it almost, Dave. If you like what you see today, like, share, follow, subscribe, 5 stars, all that good stuff. Definitely on YouTube. Likes help, comments help. All that type of stuff is good to help spread the word. If you're on X, give us a follow, repost there. And word of mouth is the most important way that we spread. So let everyone know we are here. And as you see, we're going to have awesome guests. So I want to bring our guest right in. I'm excited to have him on. He is a repeat guest, but the first time coming on with us live. He is Wilfred Reilly. He is an associate professor over at Kentucky State University, political science, and he's an author. His most recent book, Lies My Liberal Teacher Told Me. He's also the author of Hate, Crime, Hoax, and Taboo. Wilfred, what's going on, man?
Not much. Good to be on the show.
Yes, excited. And, again, always nice to have you back on. We were pumped. I'm happy you even still take my DMs. That's always a good sign that we're doing something right. But so excited to have you on. So, Dave, I want you to queue up what I had you queue up earlier. So, Quick question, Wilfred. Are you a fan of gaming at all?
Not really, no.
Not really? Okay. So
this like a lot of my buddies were gamers as a kid. Like part of my group skated a lot, and those two things kind of intersected. I never got into it. I mean, I ran track and played basketball, so I was more into physical activity, but that's not something I ever really hated on either. It was usually in the background.
Quick question, were you good at track?
Yeah, actually. I sucked my first year or two. So like competitive running, like if you're trying to go downstate or something like that, is actually surprisingly difficult. Like there's a technique to running where like the hands have to move very slowly if you're doing distance.
He went to college for it.
Yeah. But I mean, so like it was pretty good. I would have been good enough to compete for like a D2 or 3 team.
Yeah.
Like one of the things that's kind of interesting actually, like the school that I went to, East Aurora, is in the north of Illinois, right near Chicago. And the schools in our conference were all giant, like Wabansie Valley, Naquan Valley, West Aurora. We were actually probably one of the poorer ones athletically, but all of these were like 5,000 kids. So like tryout for varsity, anything would be like 70 men in shirts. So I mean, when I came down to Kentucky, I actually saw the results of the state cross country meet. The kids are good, like they're all fast, But it was like 3 mile. The winner was like 17 minutes, and I realized like the top 5 guys on my team would have won.
Yeah,
like that would have done reasonably well. And this was, I don't think it's the biggest category. It was like 2A or something. So, I mean, I would say like for parents, if you want your kids to have that classic athletic experience, there's a lot to be said for living in like a mid-sized town, as opposed to going to some giant school that has its own like ROTC, Armory, and like partnership with a college and so on down the line. So, like I was okay. I mean, there's a natural cap for most people. Like, I mean, I'm 5'10". So, I mean, like most of the basketball I played was in like competitive men's leagues as opposed to even for the school, which again, like there were 2 guys on our high school varsity team that ended up playing for the NBA, Aaron McGee and I think Taurus Dawkins. So
Aaron McGee and they went to your high school? That's dope.
Yeah, Aaron McGee was, I don't think either of them did more than like 3 years in the league, but like still it's pretty good. We're like, I mean, the guy who's guarding like plays for Cincinnati and shit. Like, so I mean, so like you realize that your potential is somewhat limited. But like I was an all right to good athlete.
Yeah, so I only asked because if you see behind me, I have my singlets and things like that. Like I went to Marist College, ran for them, and also I have a second podcast named Talking in Ovals where me and a former coach of mine interview people all around track and field. So, so I was just curious, and maybe one day I'll have you jump on there too. We could talk about your running career. That could be fun.
Such as it was. I mean, for like most people, I mean, like my running career, I was on the varsity for like 3 years in high school, got some college recruitment and ended up going to a larger college academically. So that was really the end of the career. And as I recall, the first college I went to, Northern Illinois, like again, being a college athlete, as
Northern
you
Illinois is
know,
pretty good.
no, they are, yeah, definitely. But like being a college athlete also isn't what it's presented as, unless you are good enough to be upper level D1 in like cinema. Like if you're in a Division 2 or 3 league, like you're getting some money, but you don't get an athletic scholarship. Even you're just there for the love of the game.
Yep.
And if you're in like at Northern Illinois at the time, their cross country team wasn't a recognized varsity sport. So the proposal was like, okay, why don't you guys compete 40 hours a week? And we're going to call this a club team, and we're going to give you some dues, and we're going to see if this becomes one of our D1 sports. And a lot of guys are just like, okay, I want to continue it. I want to keep this going. I mean, as a working class kid, there's also that element of like, if I'm going to do some shit for 40 hours a week, I'd rather just like be the manager and a sizzler, get money so I can afford to go to school. So yeah, I mean, it was just a typical high school level athletic career.
So I want to jump into this, David. Cue it up real quick, so we have our buddy.
Ready.
Yeah, you could throw it in the share spot. Stuttering Craig is he does a podcast called Side Scorers. He used to do Screw Attack fame for YouTube. He is starting something called the Real Game Awards, and I want to cue this up because I want people to see this, and it's important, and it ties into all the lies and stuff. Because right now, one thing, Wilfred, that Stuttering Craig is doing with Screw Attack is he's kind of parsing through all of the bullshit going on in the gaming world and things like that. Yeah, sorry, Craig, you look terrible there. But I just want to give shout out his announcement here so people can go do it. So go ahead, Dave. It's 2.5 minutes, real quick. Go ahead, Dave.
A few months ago when I announced Take Games Back, I, like many of you, had...
Oh, no.
What are you doing, Dave? Why is it buffering?
Anything.
Dave, are you failing me right now?
This might be a rough go. We might have to do this one after.
We may do this one after.
Let's pretty much just reached a tipping point. I was and am just sick and tired of seeing gamers just disrespected by journalists and even people within the video game industry. It is amazing to see an industry that has just such disregard for its customers. Take Games Back was and is a call to action because something has to be done. And since I made that first announcement, journalists, consultants, and industry activists have almost like doubled down. We've seen journalists dox people, literally call people's wives, and even challenge people to physical fights. I mean, what a joke. As I said before, it's one big club, and you're not even invited to it. And the worst part about it is that these people have the gall to think that they get to decide the best games of the year at some overly corporatized, super sterile award show that plays it safe. Not anymore. Starting today, Take Games Back is officially called the Real Game Awards. I've always thought the phrase for gamers, by gamers is extremely cliche, but I gotta be honest, that's exactly what the Real Game Awards is. You decide what you like best, not some activist blogger out of San Francisco or New York. We're gonna remove all that bullshit product placement and all that celebrity nonsense that's thrown in there. Get right to the core of it. It's about games. If you're tired of all the nonsense in the video game industry and want to help reclaim the voice for actual gamers, become a voting member of the Real Game Awards. And hell yes, we're gonna gatekeep, which is why it costs $30 a year to become a voting member. If you become a member today, guess what? We're actually taking suggestions for categories right now. Yes, you will decide the categories voted on in this year's award show. In 2024, we want to do a digital event because our goal is simple. We want to save as much money as we can for 2025 where we can hold a physical event.
We could jump out of here.
I don't care if we do it at a Buffalo.
So basically, in the end, where'd you go, Will? Where'd you go, Will? There you are. Okay. So basically, in the end, what it is that Craig is starting the Real Game Awards. If you look down here, there's the place to go. And it's basically to take it away from, because what we see, Will, this ties into all the things that we're talking to with activist journalism. We're seeing it on the political side, which is where you mostly stay, but it's everywhere right now, Wilfred. It's like, it's wild that it goes into something so like that's supposed to be like taking us out of things, right? We're supposed to be playing video games to get away from this shit, but here we are. And so what do you feel like? You're not a gamer, but what do you feel about what something like Craig is trying to do there?
I mean, I'm not really too surprised by that. Like, I don't follow the gaming world that much, but I mean, when you look at like the Sweet Baby Inc. controversy and so on, like a lot of this ties into just the reality that American college produces a lot of people that have degrees in bullshit.
Yes.
I mean, they're usually not in the top 10 fields alongside engineering and criminal justice and so on. But I mean, the studies are usually all of them are in the top 30, 40. So, I mean, you have people that have studied this stuff and sociology, women's oppression historically, so on. And when they get out, they're mostly going to go work in kind of edgy, interesting media fields. I mean, I remember there was a Harvard student maybe 5 or 6 years back who became very famous because she took all these explicit sexual pictures. Like, I don't mean to be crude, but like her boyfriend came on her lips and she took a picture of it and posted this to Facebook and Twitter and was like, "I'm proud to be who I am."
The original Hawk Tuah girl.
No, this is something I did with Harvard. And she actually said some very funny things, like I like my men, like I like my universities, older and well endowed. But like, I mean, that person graduated from Harvard and went on into Edge Media and took on a typical like $190,000 a year job.
Perfect man for the media company.
Yeah, but I mean, for like one of them, for like Cosmo or Teen Vogue or whatever Kotaku's under right now or something like that. So yeah, I mean, you have a huge amount of these people that are in every edge industry kind of saying this crap. Like I noticed that the editor of the lead gaming magazine was like a young Caucasian woman with a pixie cut who's challenging people to fistfights. And like when you look at the demographic of gamers who tend to be like Caucasian, maybe Asian or Spanish guys, like like it's a totally there's no overlap at all.
But the
but
thing,
it's
Wilfred,
just like
they're saying right now that it's 50-50 guys and girls. And the reason why they're saying that is because they're counting girls that play Candy Crush and like the farming games and shit like that on their mobile phone. When in reality, like you said, you hung out with a bunch of skaters and stuff. And what were they typically? They were a bunch of dudes that just went after skating to go play video games. And maybe you got like that one chick that hung around with the group and she came and she maybe played some Halo or whatever. Like she was like fine, but that was typically wasn't the demographic. So they just, more lies, right? More lies that they're trying to pull.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't really have a problem with the idea that half of the people that are involved in computer-based entertainment are female. Like, I mean, like there are a lot of games that are sort of like even like the old school, like Settlers of Catan, Magic the Gathering. Like, there's a whole world of shit like that began as even Dungeons and Dragons stuff that began in nerd culture decades ago. That was actually pretty racially and even sexually integrated that migrated online. But I mean, like, yeah, if you're playing like something where you pick up resources going around a track, it's probably like 40% female. I guess the question would be how you just coming from a business perspective, like how you demographically divide your audience. So if you're looking at that core audience of people that play like first person shooter games and athletics games and that make up like 80%, as I recall, it's like 87% of the people that like purchase gaming content and read gaming magazines and like follow new titles, not to like wait for the app to upload, not mocking like female gamers. Like if you're targeting that group, you would use different techniques than you would with like casual amateur fans. And you would also try not to alienate the people that are buying 90% of your product, unless you're in this weird world where you're hiring executives from a group that hate their core audience. And by the way, I don't just think that's gaming. I think that like
it's everywhere.
Yeah, it's a real problem because in college, you have a situation where a lot of the very core majors, like all the studies fields, sociology, a lot of the other social sciences, things like anthropology, a lot of the things where you're probably not going to get a job in that field with the bachelor's degree, but which have always been feeders into advertising, marketing, trading floors. Like when I worked on an elite sales floor, we usually wouldn't hire anyone with a degree in like sales. The idea was, do you have enough of a background to be considered upper middle class by our clients? So like philosophy was popular. Can you actually like talk shit on the phone if someone engages you and wants to understand like why would I buy this from you? This costs $100,000. So, all of those people coming in are very, very different from what they were 25 years ago. And this is a real point. And I'm actually not particularly sexist or racist in any direction. But I mean, like the collegiate graduating pool right now is about 60% female. It's insanely liberal.
Yep.
I mean, like, we've started mapping the political preferences of college professors after an incredible amount of resistance from the campuses. Like, there's a lot of data on like affirmative action admissions or professors voting positions and even attitudes that was very hard to get for a long period of time. But like the social science faculties at most schools are like 93% to the left. Students seem to be about 80% to the left. So anyway, you're getting all these people. They don't look much of anything like the population. They're going into all these fields and they're doing this kind of weird, not even woke, but like isolated, coastal, upper class kid shit that nobody wants to see. And the ultimate example, and the conservative podcaster Matt Walsh has gone on about this for like weeks at a time, but was Bud Light hiring a transgender spokesmodel as like one of the leading Bud Light girls? Like she got her own can and bottle.
And then the
like,
marketing girl was this early 30s something year old that was partied with frat boys, but then went out to say like, we want to get away from frat culture. And it's like your whole demographic is a bunch of frat boys drinking your piss water at really high rates in college because they don't give a shit about the taste. They're just trying to get fucked up. So it's like you're trying to get away from your demographic. And how many trans people are sitting there and going, man, I really want that Bud Light. Like, I'm sorry, if you're like a Dylan Mulvaney trans, it's a caricature of a woman. You're like, give me my Cosmo. Like, that's because that's what Dylan Mulvaney is going to think every girl wants, right? Is my Cosmo and my mimosa, like in my heels. Like, that's the last thing that Dylan Mulvaney is thinking about is a Bud Light. So it's like, it's so weird, but it comes back to what you said, that these liberal arts and these like social science professors are not only just left, a lot of them are just like Marxist left, like a leftist, not just like your typical left wing and American think about, but it's like Marxist. And it's wild to think that they're now putting these on these kids. And, you know, kids in college feel like they're adults. You're a college professor, so you see it, but they are still incredibly easy to mold. They're incredibly easy to influence. So when they're going there and they're looking up to some of these professors who are intelligent people, it's not like they're idiots, and they're looking up to them and things that they say, it's real easy to sit there and turn them Marxist, turn them classist, when a lot of these kids are the upper class that they're like marching against. It's like they're just going to go fight their parents. It's really weird.
It's a matter of like turning them Marxist. I think it's a matter of not introducing young people to any of the classical ideas that you were supposed to introduce young rebels to in college. Like if I really had to take this seriously. But I mean, so yeah, first of all, like with the Dylan Mulvaney thing, yeah, the person, the VP who was responsible for that looked exactly like you would have expected her to. I mean, she was like a 32-year-old girl boss for one of like the lower Ivies or like the better Big Ten schools who like had a former like fraternity president boyfriend. I think they were separated. She didn't want her frat boy audience. She wanted to reject and move on into new demographics. And like, again, actually try not to stereotype too much when I'm, for example, hiring, but like it was bang, 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 just what you would have thought. And so their spokesmodel, like where the person doing the languid bathtub ads that they do and so on, was male, like with the dick.
Yeah.
It was something that was very obviously not going to work. And there was a complete disconnect between, if you look at their marketing team, it was like almost all upper middle class women and low testosterone, like East Coast upper middle class dudes.
A bunch of
and
babies.
all of them, when they booked Dylan Mulvaney, there were people like clapping in the room. There were like pictures of this. And then the audience, it's guys who were Greek in college, mostly, or who just partied in college, who graduated, who never grew in terms of taste. And who just still they have a couple beers once a week when their wife drinks wine and they drink Bud Light. And if you are presenting this to that demographic, they're just going to stop drinking Bud Light, drink some equivalent bilge water. They're going to buy a Coors. At least the Silver Bullet is cold.
That Mountain Blue, it's cold, baby.
Beers, which also are kind of average in my opinion. They're much better beers in Mexico. They're much better beers in Germany. But like, I mean, you started seeing these new beers like Victoria, which is a hell of a lot better than Bud Light, like flying off the shelves. So
could go buy our buddy over there, Conservative Dad's Ultra Right Beer, Seth Weathers. Another nice answer to Bud Light.
The ultra right beer thing, I mean, is just funny to me. Like I do, that guy, by the way, seems like a perfectly nice guy. We had an exchange.
Seth is awesome. He's a nice guy. He just he's like a cool guy that just, you know, he saw an opportunity Bud Light was floundering, and he's like, let me go get a piece of that pie. And he's a conservative guy, so let's do it. And he sent David and I a nice care package. We each got 18 beers. We got shirts. I got Riley Gaines hanging out in the back as Miss July over there. So we got a nice care package from him. And the beer is it's like a Bud Light. It's a Coors Light. It's very much, it's maybe a step nicer tasting, a decent beer, but it's just, if you're just hanging around, like you said, the people that drink when their wife drinks wine, they can just grab a conservative dad's, watch whatever on TV and drink it. It's like, it is a fine answer. And this is not a paid promotion. We just like Seth.
I don't have a problem with the guy either. I do have, there's an element of humor to these conservative brands that are responding to these hyper liberal brands, though. I mean, there's a lot to be said for your shoe company just shutting the fuck up and making shoes. Like, I mean, and Michael Jordan, who's made $6 or $7 billion by this point, once famously said that, like, very famously, for all of us were athletes. Like, he was asked, would he get involved in a race between like a black guy that was very pro-affirmative action and Jesse Helms on the team bus? And you could see him look at the reporter like, why would you ask me something like that with the camera on? And he just said, no, everyone buys sneakers. Yes. And then they just went on, Republicans buy sneakers too. Yep. And that's a good attitude for your beer company to have. Like, I don't really want my preferred brand of cocktail peanuts to have like really vigorous opinions on Latin American politics or something like that, where I have to get aggressive and get angry about it. I mean, just shut up.
Bolsonaro is free, cashews. Like, I don't give a shit.
I mean,
that would be freaking awesome. Okay, if like a brand of like killing bugs would be like Afuera bug spray, and there's a picture of freaking
like the thing with this though, like the ultra right beer thing. It is really targeted just at, again, that demographic of conservative guys that want to get laid and sometimes like drinking beer. Like, they hired the girl that made herself famous for saying nigga once on a podcast. To do a beer ad just because she's like a good-looking working class white chick, and that was like mildly politically incorrect. I think her boyfriend's black, by the way. She's not actually a bigot, but like it's like a single mom. No hate for this girl at all.
Doesn't that make her a bigot though? It's like, isn't that I have black friends? I have a black boyfriend. Doesn't that officially make her racist by saying that?
No, I actually think a lot of people are really misunderstanding working class culture, which is like, I mean, I grew up in the hood, basically. Like, East Aurora is like a tough working class but functional area. But like the projects are like right next to where I lived. I mean, it was like, if you actually go to the hood and it's in the Midwest, you're not in Alabama or something, Boston would be even more notable. Like, there actually is a pretty large diversity of people. Like, there's a very large Hispanic community by this point. In Chicago, we still have a lot of Italians, Irishmen, people from there's a neighborhood called the Ukrainian Village in Chicago. It's not an especially upscale one, so it's just like, if you actually see like a white girl making bad cookies and talking about my niggas, the odds she's a racist are really low. The odds she's a single mom with like a black baby daddy and a white baby daddy are really high. And I think a lot of guys knew that. They were like embracing her, like, alt-right moves ever forward. Like, come on, kid.
The funny thing is too, it's like, you bring up like the diversity, and it's something where if you grow up in certain areas, it's just a vernacular, right? Like, people are saying it, and it's like white, black, Spanish, and you're the weird one if you're not responding that way. It's a term of endearment. Like, you're just saying, it's like saying dude at some point. It really is. So it's like,
that's correct. Yeah, that actually, like the N word. Since I've gotten my profanity cap this 5-minute segment. The N word.
I don't care.
I'll say the N word one more time to go back to my normal speech. But like the N word and other terms like motherfucker are actually things I try to say less as an adult man, because like talking like you're 18 sounds kind of trashy if you're wearing a suit. But I mean, yes, that's exactly correct. Like, when people say any of the major racial slurs or things that come close, like white boy or things like fucker, playing basketball, they're not making any kind of deep ethnic statement. No. And the idea that they are, again, is an upper class thing where you have these sheltered like theater kids that didn't actually play ball or wrestle, much less join the army or work in a garage or anything like that, looking at normal people interacting and saying like, my God, they just traded a black insult for a white insult. These people must hate each other. No, they're like foster brothers.
They're best friends. You're like they're at all. They were the same army your best friends more than anybody.
And there's a huge difference.
Very likely to be very close friends.
Yeah, and there's a huge difference between like the lower class class or middle class are playing basketball, like they're being more blunt to each other. They're just saying whatever the hell they want to say. The upper class people, they're a little more catty. There's usually a hidden motive depending on what they're trying to say to each other. So they're projecting that what they would do to people onto the people that are just having normal conversation.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think there's a real reluctance to recognize norm. So one of the things that's really weird in higher education that's crept into day-to-day life is this reluctance to recognize normal human behavior. Yep. So like, do you guys know who Ella is?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, on Twitter, right?
Yeah, like sex worker chick on Twitter who's also from like
I've seen her.
Class.
She does polls all the time, right?
Yeah, but like one of her polls recently, and by the way, I don't actually encourage guys to sit on an ass all day like watching porn and playing video games as a prelude to like my comment here. But like she asked guys, one, like how much do you do subcultural stuff, including watching pornography, blah, blah, blah. And two, how much do you think women would like certain sexual things, like choking if they give full consent to it? And she asked a bunch of guys, and it was very hyper detailed. And then she asked a bunch of women how much they liked the things. And what she found was that the more guys avoided kind of like the proper collegiate take on stuff, like the more they did watch porn, the more they'd actually dated like normal women, so on, the more accurate their take on what women wanted, which is at least as quote unquote dirty as what men wanted, was. And I don't think I was surprised by that at all.
It shouldn't be, really, because it's just like, oh, if you do a normal behavior, if you're more exposed to something, you'll learn more about it. What a surprise. Yeah, but go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, you're right. It's also just kind of intuitively obvious. Like but I mean, like the number one selling woman-coded book of all time.
Oh. Did we lose Wilf?
I hope not.
Down the line. Like, but the point of this, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you went out for a second.
Yeah, but no, what I said was just like the number one selling quote unquote woman coded book of all time is 50 Shades of Grey.
Yep.
And that's an extremely well-known fact in one of my worlds, which is the publishing world. Number two is 50 Shades Darker.
And jumping onto that, there's a new one that's entered women into like the world of like fantasy with dragons and stuff called The Fourth Wing. Yeah. Which my wife read, and she knows I like Lord of the Rings and Aragon and stuff like that. I'm a giant nerd. So she's like, hey, this is a pretty good story about dragons and stuff. I think you'll like it. She goes, but the sex scenes are incredibly explicit. And I'm like, I'm an adult male. I can do this. Like, whatever. I don't care. I've seen porn. It's fine. Like, and I read it and I get through one of them, Wilfred. Women are fucking disgusting. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, women are gross when they write stuff. It is worse than any porn scene a director. I'm not going to say any. I'll take that back. But
I was going to say this.
Porn scenes that they could do. Like, just the explicitness of it is gross. And like you said, like, these are the things that women are reading. And you're thinking that these women don't want to experience some of these fantasies in some way?
I think that bluntly, I think the thing that's disturbing for a lot of guys is that so many of the fantasies are rapes, or they involve things that aren't explicit.
That's the weirdest thing.
Yeah, or that, I mean, bluntly, or that they involve things that aren't exactly human. Like the dragon book you mentioned is part of what's called the whole Monster Fucker series.
Yep.
And like, just, I'm not going to say Google that, but like, there's an entire women's category where like the hero is like the king of the orcs.
Yeah.
Like a former partner of mine, who's still a good friend, I'm not going to name her, was an actual sexologist. So like, well, part of the reason I know that, like, I'm a pretty good quantitative researcher, and I've chipped into a lot of papers over the years. And I've read, not just with her, like a lot of actual sexology. And it's a full field. Like Ella's contributed to it. Friends like Deborah So have contributed to it. And like, we actually know what men and women are interested in. And like the idea that women have darker fantasies than men isn't really that much challenged. So I guess the point that I'm making here isn't like, you know, women are perverts, because guys commit most of the actual sex crimes. It's that the more you know about actual human behavior, the less shocked you are by what people do. So like the normal working class kids having fist fights if they get mad at each other, or just casually using slurs with each other and then just being friends, compared to everything else people do, isn't shocking at all. The disconnect is that you're bringing in these people that don't like ordinary people to run ordinary people shit. Like to take over a company that's designed to make games so that guys can get home from the plant and chill with their friends. So if you start doing that and you start putting this weird post-collegiate crap in them, like all the characters are you can't pick one sex for your character now in some games, right?
It's type A and type B.
It's
they're
type A,
male
type
and
B,
female.
body type,
body type A, body type B, and they can. But you have games that they champion like Baldur's Gate where absolutely everything is trying to fuck you. And
but really Baldur's Gate was actually like a good game, gameplay wise.
Gameplay it was good, but everything's trying to have sex with
D&D though. So D&D is like that.
D&D is like that. D&D,
but
it's a game that they champion though. It's not a game that they knock. Like this is.
What they'll champion it over is like Stellar Blade, where Stellar Blade had a good looking Korean model who had very many assets, who they're like, this is bad for women because people like the way she looks.
And then the real model's like, the fuck? Like, she's actually well put together.
Exactly.
And so they're bringing in all this stuff, like you said, Wilfred. And it's, like you said, there's a huge disconnect. And I think this ties into also what we're seeing politically, right? But the thing is, the whole entire veil has come off. Because what have we been getting told about Joe Biden this whole time, right? We've been getting told that Joe Biden is with it. He understands. He's sharp. If you consumed any conservative media, you've had enough proof since he was running in 2019 that there is nothing sharp about him, right? But we just saw, what was it, last night? Jon Stewart went on and was like, this is alarming what we're seeing. We need to sit there. And it's like, only if you haven't been paying attention, you see that this is alarming, right? So this ties in again. It ties into your book. Lies a liberal teacher told me. This is lies a liberal left has told all of us. What are you seeing politically that kind of ties into everything in terms of all the lies that we've been getting?
Quite a lot. So, I mean, the book itself is Lies My Liberal Teacher Told Me. I mean, 1 minute pitch for the book, and then I'll answer the question. Basically, the whole idea of the book is that for decades, really, we've been hearing this weird idea about America, which is that we're the worst country in history, probably. We were founded on slavery and the merciless murder of the Indians, which is totally unprovoked. All they did was live peacefully and dance and make love inside longhouses. And, we abused women, which no one else did, and dropped big bombs on our military opponents. So you have all this. But something that I found more interesting is that you have a narrative that, again, is really, really common in the educated classes, which is sort of like nobody knows this because our national story is told from the right.
Yep.
So you have all these books that are kind of like designed to educate the kids. There's a very famous book by Jay Lowen, Lies My Teacher Told Me, which is just my book in reverse. It's like all this stuff that's in like 1950s textbooks.
Yep.
There's another book, 1619, a Black History of the USA. And I'm exaggerating a little bit here, but practically the subtitle and the lies they're telling you. This is just the full title, Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, a Native History of the United States. There's that old commie Howard Zinn, another full-on 400-pager. His is a People's History of the United States. So there's this idea that And these are, when you guys said I've read that, everyone's read that. These are high school textbooks. I'm not being glib, but these are the most widely assigned books in many of our schools. 1619 has one of the most commonly used educational curriculums in the United States.
Which is wild.
The Zinn Education Project, which is openly Marxist, also has an educational curriculum. So you have this idea where your people are constantly being told this is an evil, wicked country. And they're also being told, you're being told something else from the right. And in my book, I make a couple of points that I think are pretty obvious. One is this is not an evil, particularly wicked country. Humans are a predator species. No country is perfect. Yep. But the flaws of the United States, like having slaves, and someone mentioned Tom Wood's book. Yeah, there are a couple of other good books that have done this over the years. I do think mine's a little more specific. Like I read through all of these history textbooks and broke out this info. But shout out to Tom Woods, he's a good writer. But yeah, I mean, so point one, the things that the United States did were done by literally everyone throughout history. And this is important to realize. It's very important to have a personal honor code, but ultimate morals probably aren't real. That's the most debated question in philosophy. Yeah. And we can at least say that until the past 70 years or so, nobody had the sort of dorm room morality that everyone pretends to today. The term homophobia would have been incomprehensible to any American or Zulu or French or Aztec general. What are you talking about? You're saying I don't like butt sex? If you bring that up again, I'm going to have you crucified. You son of a... It would have been completely incomprehensible. So most of the things that we view as great national sins, like slavery, being a bit more serious, have existed literally throughout the entire run of the human species.
And still exist. Yeah, right now, sex slavery is arguably bigger and worse than, most forms of slavery have ever been. And we are kind of just sweeping it under the rug. If you're not like, on the right now, apparently that's a big thing on the right. We saw the movie Sound of Freedom, which the left tried to smear as lies. And it was just trying to expose like sex slavery is real. It's going on. It's a massive industry and it needs to be stopped.
And this goes well beyond. Now, I would add one thing there because we've talked about sex work and so on. I mean, most figures for trafficking in sex work are at about 1 or 2%. So we need to totally break, the ancient pimps trade, which is another classic human vice. But I mean, there are about 3 million women on OnlyFans right now. So I don't think the majority of people that are harassing you online with their pornographic content are actually being pressured to do that by pimps or something. Like, I don't think like the normal guy looking at the ad is somehow at fault because of some hidden system we're all ignoring or something like that. But yeah, I mean, like those people, the Sound of Freedom sort of stuff, traffickers from across the border, the punishment should be death. Absolutely. But it goes beyond sex slavery. I mean, it's just slavery even today, before I get back to the core point. I mean, there are entire countries like Mauritania and Saudi Arabia where slavery wasn't legally banned until the 1980s and where it still continues. There's another term used like chattel serfdom or something, but where you have kind of the I owe my soul to the company store we had 100 years ago. Like, well, sure, you're free now. You can leave as soon as you pay off your debt. Exactly. What's my debt? 100,000 rupees. How much do I get paid per year? 40 rupees. Well, it's going to be a while, huh? So that sort of thing goes on globally. There are about 50 million slaves globally. I know this data because one of my causes actually is fighting modern slavery. It's some of the charities that I give to are in that field. So
what are some of those charities so we can so people, if they want to look it up, that they're there? Like, give me a few of your ones that you prominently and if you want, you could share your screen if you want to look it up too. We can throw it up there.
Well, there are actually quite a few. I mean, so I've given to IJM, which is International Justice Mission in Labor Trafficking. I can just really read these off.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
I mean, so like I literally just pulled up. I have the Fight Modern Slavery saved, so I didn't do anything unique and original here. But I mean, probably the best known, Anti-Slavery International is pretty good. And if you search on a computer without cookies, most of these I've never given to the Department of State, which is the program to end modern slavery. I wouldn't. The government has enough of my goddamn money.
Yeah.
I've never given to end slavery now, but I mean, of the top 5, so IJM, International Justice Mission, has done good work to end labor trafficking. There's antislavery.org, which is a group that sends people overseas to do anti-slavery missions. There's Anti-Slavery International. I would also mention that there's some local groups like the Free Burma Rangers that do a lot of things to fight. FBR, that fight trafficking locally. I would recommend that people do an independent. So I mean, that's 4 right there. I would recommend that people do an independent search if they're interested in the border region, because that's not where I've given. But like, if you're interested in stopping trafficking at the border, that's obviously one of the major loci of trafficking in the world right now. Because what you get if you open up a resource like that is going to be hundreds of thousands of people being moved across, some unwillingly, and where you have mass migrations of prey, you have predators, to quote, whoever that British guy is who does the Out of Africa documentaries. It's horrible to think of humans in that Attenborough, but it's
thank you, David Attenborough.
That's kind of what's going on there now. But anyway, like, it's not just that there's slavery going on today, it's also that slavery existed for pretty much as long as people did. So one of the first 25 or so human words was slave. I mean, like in the old cuneiform and hieroglyphic languages, you can see what people wrote down and you can generate meaning from the words that are around it. So, I mean, there's wife was one of them, sheep was one of them, and slave was one of them. And slave has a kind of a sad meaning to it. It's the word for defeated warrior.
Yes.
Like in Sumerian cuneiform language, it's just the term for man from the mountains or fighter from the mountains, combined with another symbol. It pretty much means you lost. So you came down here to fight on the plains and it didn't go well for you. And now you are developing the agricultural productivity of King Akkad's empire for some time to come. So I guess the point is the West didn't do anything unusual really. It's good that we stopped having slaves. And I think it should be recognized that the heroic campaigns of the USA and Britain and so on around the world are...
Especially Britain. Britain ended it early, and they started going with blockades of their navy of any nations around them that they knew were still doing it, and was like, hey, number one, we're done trading with you. Number two, we're going to blow you up if you don't stop. And they ended a lot of slavery that way.
Yeah, no, Britain had a more honorable response to the end of the slave trade than we did. That should be recognized. But like this is actually kind of a side point, but something I talk about in the book, which is all the great historical stories that we've forgotten because of this kind of focus on crying about the recent past.
Yeah.
If you look through a high school history textbook, it's crazy how much of it deals with like oppression of blacks in the modern USA or Vietnam. Or the hippie movement, like all of this crap, feminism, which at least that deals with an ancient conflict between men and women and so on. But it's this very narrow niche.
And the rest of it's World War II and Nazism and fascism, and then that's all they cover. Like that, those are like the 5 topics that you learn for 12 straight years, basically, in some form or another. It really is. And like the only thing we learn about communism is the Cuban Missile Crisis. Meh. McCarthy was crazy, which he actually wasn't. And and Soviet Union went down with Reagan. They don't talk anything about the atrocities. They don't talk about Cambodia. They don't talk about China. So it's like those are like you talk about those 4, and then like fascism are like the only topics we get, basically.
Yeah, so there are 2 points there. One, the McCarthy thing is actually one of the chapters in the book. So chapter 2 in the book is the Red Scare wasn't a panic.
Yep.
Like the idea that the Red Scare was an irrational panic is bullshit. And it was actually originally McCarthy was based, I see from the guys on the side. Yeah, kind of. I mean, it was originally driven by the Communist Party and the Fabian Society. Like the whole idea that there weren't any communists in the USA and the UK was intentional agitprop. It was propaganda designed to scare and distract. It was intentionally the opposite of reality. And we know this now. I mean, when we were fairly friendly with the Russians, when Putin's Russia was part of the G8, late 1990s, early 00s, following the collapse of the Soviet Union, but before our conflicts with Putin geopolitically, the Venona cables, the full list of exchanges between the Soviet Union and their agents in the USA and the UK were decoded. I mean, there's some that weren't, but of the more important cables, the vast majority were. And we now know who the Russian agents in the country during that period were.
Yep.
And this isn't me talking from kind of the center, right? Like if you go to Britannica, Wikipedia, there's like a list of people named in the Venona cables. And they break out who's an agent and who wasn't. The point of all this is that all of those people that became kind of pause celebs, like, oh, he couldn't have been a communist. Like, oh, if you look back at the Alger Hiss Whittaker Chambers fight, or if you look at Julius Ethel Rosenberg, Dalton Trumbo, like all of them were Russian spies with like code names and handlers.
And the whole reason Reagan got into politics and became a Republican is because he was going to these SAG meetings. I don't know if it was SAG back then, but it was all the actors, and they were communist Film Actors Guild fame, but they were out communists, and he's just like, wait a minute, I've always been, a little bit left leaning because I've grown up here, but this is crazy. And anyone that tried to speak out, he got shunned, and that's when Reagan kind of became more of a conservative and kind of not even conservative. Reagan and Trump are extremely similar because neither of them are conservative, but I digress. But that's like, you see that when you had a prominent actor like Ronald Reagan leaving, and there was no Red Scare. It's because they were listening to these people.
I was going to say, I think
Marxism.
I think current times kind of bears out that McCarthy wasn't really wrong about that situation. Just the way you can see the institutions are kind of captured, and it was kind of like, oh, he was onto something, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, it's weird. So one of the ideas that's always been dismissed as hyper conspiratorial everywhere, but on like the far Henry Regnery right, which is basically correct about this, and in Russia, which was terrified during the entire Cold War that we'd find out what they were doing. But one of those ideas was that there was a kind of fifth column of genuinely communist American intellectuals backed up by actual Russians in the USA. And we now know that that was pretty much true.
Yep.
Like there were X, whatever the Venona number is, X number of agents in the USA. And there were also all of these people that were taking what were pretty much communist ideas and moving them into the American mainstream. Like there were tens of thousands. of members of the Communist Party. So, and again, I don't know exactly what percentage of the people who were active in the American radical scene were genuinely aware of who they were serving during the beatnik 1950s and hippie 1960s and Vietnam 1970s and so on. But it's a percentage greater than zero. And the impact they had on society was really, really significant. Like, we lost the Vietnam War. Vietnamese generals like Ho Chi Minh said, in large part because of the American home front demonstrations, constant protests, so on. The large majority of actual Americans supported the Vietnam War until very close to the end. That's something else that I point out in the book. Yep. 2/3 of American soldiers in Vietnam were volunteers who wanted to fight the communists.
No. I mean, they all hated that.
You would never hear that.
To kill their generals. All you hear is the stories of, well, they were all rebelling and killing those people in charge and their COs, and you didn't want to be a CO in the Vietnam War because, they'll watch your back the whole time. But like you said, in reality, there was major support, and this is where, I think the media deserves partially a bad rap because it was the first politicized war in a lot of ways where you saw the open politics of it. And, me and David, our father, we've talked about this forever. If you just let American generals go in and do their jobs, there's not a war we probably don't win, right? But that war, the American generals couldn't do their job. They were sitting there stuck with a camera around them and a journalist following them with everything they did. So even if you wanted to order something that maybe was a little touchy or in the line of war was going to save your people, but, maybe not be most kosher back there, you couldn't do it. And we lost a lot of lives because of that.
I mean, and I personally, I don't think ultimate morality is real at all. I mean, I think you should be very honorable with your wife and kids and so on. But I mean, like, armies used to openly paint black flags on their saddles or tanks or whatever and just kill every member of the opposing army. And the idea was that there armed enemy fighting men weren't probably the best people to waste your empathy on. So I think that's a very logical opinion to hold, in fact, that almost everyone still holds privately.
Well, no, you don't understand that every war is a genocide now. So
that's the thing. Like, so we saw this with television, and then we finally managed to embed the damned reporters and get them out of the front lines. So we solved that problem during Gulf War I, which we won. But then we're facing the same problem with social media, where you have people on the ground now sending up images of violence using their cell phones and so on. The basic issue with this kind of war coverage is the same thing as the issue with, for example, George Floyd and Jacob Blake with policing. Most people who haven't been soldiers or a step below that, policemen or maybe competitive athletes or slum dwellers or something, most people have never seen serious violence. So like, I actually have, like, I mean, I've seen people get shot, and so I've never seen anyone get like ripped apart by the tank round. So I mean, I guess there's if they're escalating levels
to it, I guess.
Someone being set on fire with white phosphorus or something, it's not what you want to see in the morning. But I mean, like, but most people have never seen a basic level of violence, like say killing a deer. Something that you would expect probably 35% at least of males to have done themselves.
Which used to be like a 80 percentile thing, not less than 100 years ago, where you hunted. Your dad probably or someone in your family went out and hunt. You fired a gun before you went out and at least tried to kill a deer. Like, that was a normal thing for, at minimum, the suburban to rural kids, right? Now, I want to say perhaps 70% of kids are like, no, I never want to touch a gun. It's like, wait, you out of your mind? Of course you want to touch a gun. Like,
that's exactly right. Yeah, it's actually really problematic. So I consider myself kind of I'm like a soft merchant at this point in my life. But like, I'm actually, a sideline of mine technically is that I'm a professional pistol instructor. Like, I'm one of those. I have to have my little gun thing on my wall. Like, I don't know, we don't need really turn the camera. But like, I technically have one of those like NRA and like in-state policing certifications to train people to get concealed carry licenses and all that. But like, to do that, you have to go to the range like every week or two and show you still have your basic skills and so on. So you get to see people firing guns and you get used to just the thunder of the weapon and that kind of thing. And I mean, I just have a regular gun. I have a 3rd gen Glock 17. It's a handgun. I don't have like my self-defense weapon is not like some bazooka type thing that people would imagine.
But it'll do the job if you're skilled enough, right? Like you obviously have the skill. If someone wants to threaten you, they're probably not going to be walking and you'll be facing a jury of your peers, and that's okay, right? Like,
that's better to be kind of involved in carried by six, as the old Kentucky saying goes. I mean, if you get a Kentucky jury in a home invasion case, you're going home in like a week. You're in the hotel or whatever until they let you go. But I mean, it's basically though, although in all honesty, I've never killed anyone, and I'm quite happy about that. Actually, I'd take the scholar's path. I wouldn't be like panicked or anything, but I'd prefer not to shoot anybody. So hopefully there won't be a burglar crazy enough to break into my house. Pleasant. It seems like I mean, I enjoy hunting, but it would seem shooting another human citizen over your television, which I would. I mean, you have to send the message. You can't just rob people's houses.
The next person be not yours. Yeah,
the next person could be someone's grandmother. But like, it seems like an unpleasant way to spend your weekend, going down to the local jail and then everyone, the hospital. But at any rate, the point, though, is that what we're talking about, that normal experience of using a firearm to defend your home or using a firearm to hunt a deer, just the most mundane shit in the world, most people now do not have.
Yeah.
So when you see things like the George Floyd video is upsetting to see, but it's basically a guy who's going through what's called excited delirium. He's taking a whole bunch of drugs. He took meth. He took fentanyl. You can see the guy. I've seen the full video. You can see the guy screaming in panic before anything happens to him. He's sitting next to the car, howling and yelling. And the cops are actually being very patient with this.
Yeah. And the girlfriend is screaming with him to stop. Like she's begging him or whoever. I don't know if it's his girlfriend, whoever that was. I never knew. But she's begging him, like, stop. You're like telling him he's out of control. And the cops are going to arrest him. And for the video, the cops are looking like they're not trying to do anything violent. They were just trying to get him to calm down to participate. And you probably would have been arrested either way, but they weren't trying to escalate that situation if you watch the whole video.
No, that's correct. And there are multiple people there. There's his girl. A lot of people don't know that his drug dealer actually is in the car the entire time. Nothing happened to him. Yep. The white fire captain that eventually starts freaking out on the cops was there for a while, initially giving not terrible advice. So it's not like the cops are beating this guy in the middle of the street with no one there. There are 5 or 6 people around saying like, hey, calm down, shut up, big guy. And this goes on for 30 or 40 minutes. And the cops finally say, well, this is a public space. We're going to have to take you in. We're going to have to put you in the car. And that's when the situation escalates.
Yep.
And I mean, in all honesty, like anyone that's ever rolled, anyone that's ever been in a fight situation, like the guy Chauvin he's a fit guy, but he weighs about 150 pounds. He didn't kill George Floyd by pressing his knee on the back of Floyd's shoulder or even on his neck. Like that's not going to kill a fit male who weighs 220 in any normal situation. The only question is, did Floyd have, say, an inflamed heart, something like that? I'm not a doctor, caused by his use of those narcotics that escalated? Because then that is, legally speaking, that is Chauvin's fault. And that normally would be manslaughter, something like that.
Too. Apparently he had COVID, they found out. That George Floyd was suffering from COVID, which I don't know if it's true or not.
Yeah, it is.
But that's what they said he had, and we know that COVID can cause issues with your heart and things like that. And all those things mixing in are a huge cause to what happened.
No, that's absolutely right. Yeah. So I've actually read the full-on like I watched the fall of Minneapolis, and my own opinion, I think it was pretty solid. But whenever you see something like that, if like I'm an academic and I enjoy banter of this kind, but I also take that role seriously. So I mean, I just went online and got the documents. I wanted to see what was going on with this. Yep. And I mean, so Floyd had taken what for an ordinary man would be a fatal dose of fentanyl. I mean, he just had it was
a lot.
Like,
it was 10
milligrams or 0.10. It was over the fatal line by quite a bit.
Yeah.
He was also on meth. Now, he could have been a heavy user of both of those drugs. It could be different for him, but it's hard to see that not exacerbating his condition.
Yes.
And I mean, my guess would be that he took something like bad ecstasy to have both of those in his system at the same time. Like most people don't do a line of meth and then take fent or heroin to like calm down. If you're familiar with drugs. So he probably took what he thought of, or what he was told were like some smacky pills or something. So there's someone else that could be charged with accessory to homicide or something there. That's never been discussed at all for obvious reasons. But anyway, he also had COVID. He was also high out of his mind. There was like substantial marijuana, like all this was going on. And so this guy is in this confrontation situation. He's tries to pass at least one fake bill. So he is going to go to jail. He committed a moderately serious crime. And obviously punishment's not death or something, but the cops, I don't think, are trying to kill it as this begins. So anyway, the point is the video begins. People see what looks like this terrible situation. They don't know what's going on. So the reaction is, well, let's hang those officers. But that's the reaction in every situation where these totally untrained people see violence. That's also the reaction with Jacob Blake, that actual rapist who went back to his victim's house. He was an accused rapist. There was a warrant out for him. He went back to his girl's house. That was the victim. Like, he tried to take a car with his kids in it. Like, so he's fighting with a cop. These are both big men. The cop says stop. This goes on for 2 minutes. The cop gets the gun in the grip, shoots him, only hits him twice. They keep saying there were 7 slugs fired. I mean, one was into the ground as they were struggling. I mean, but he gets hit twice. He's in a wheelchair, at least temporarily. This is actually one of the best, the most defensible police shootings you could possibly have.
100%.
I mean, like, are you going to let the rapist take the kids? What are you talking about? But so but it's the same thing. When people see this, the question is, well, you see that horror of, the jacketed bullet striking the divine human form. That nothing can ever justify that. And I guess my point is that that same overly empathic attitude, which might be fine for like your wife on a rabbit hunt or something, but really can't guide society, that's now being used in the military context. Yes, that is part of why we lost Vietnam, but it's also part of what's affecting the Israelis right now in their war with Hamas.
I hate the whole entire. So, Will, I know we got to let you go, soon, but we'll end off with this real quick. I absolutely hate the new term in war, proportional response. It is the dumbest thing I've ever fucking heard. You know what the proportional response is? I'm stronger than you. I roll you over until you wave the white flag sufficiently. And that's all Israel needs to do. And that's all they should be doing. But Wilfred, unless you have a last comment on that, I know you got to roll. We want to let you go. So if you want to have a last comment, and then we'll get you out of here.
Sure thing, so we got 5 minutes. So, I mean, basically, first of all, proportionality in war doesn't mean you have to do exactly what your enemy does. In fact, that's the first thing they tell you not to do if you ever study military science, you sit in an ROTC class, anything like that, because that just continues the war forever with great loss to women, children, so on. That's what war used to be. Like, each tribe would raid outside the other tribe's boundaries and grab one fighting man and torture him for 2 weeks, so you'd come back and get him. That's the Hatfields and McCoys. What proportionality in war means in actual international law is there enough of a justification, i.e. killing enough enemy soldiers? You want to kill as many as possible to engage in the action, even if the action will kill, say, 10 small children and a beloved dog that was once used in a Palestinian ad campaign, apparently a thing that actually happened. So
an AI ad, probably.
I don't believe anything that's coming out of Palestine, by the way.
Not a single thing.
I believe nothing coming out of Palestine and probably 15% coming out of Israel, because fog of war exists, right? I trust Israel more than I trust the Palestinians. So I'll believe 15% of their propaganda, because it's all wartime propaganda. They're all going to try and get you on their side.
I think that's quite right. That's also why I don't really say a lot about Russia, Ukraine. Like, if I had to pick a side in this unfortunate mutual Slavic bloodbath, where people like Putin keep bringing up things like, this land has belonged to me since my great ancestral cousin had a man, Volodograd, the Kinslayer, took it from the dreaded yellow men on their swift ponies. And it's just like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, I've listened to the full translated version of Putin's interview with Tucker, and it's just sort of, this is why wars are fought, obviously. When we strip away the rhetoric and so on, people want such and such a lake that their great grandfather sailed on, or their navy once won a battle in. But I mean, I don't have strong feelings about that. I don't feel that I have to.
No.
But I mean, one reason I don't comment, although I back Ukraine, is that I think both sides are obviously lying. Yeah. I mean, if you have Telegram or any similar tool, I mean, this is not something I do personally, but there are quite a few videos of mutual tortures and this kind of thing. Whole towns have been destroyed. Yeah, so it strikes me as the sort of war where you really don't want to get captured. Like, I don't really have a strong reason to think one side's doing less of that than the other. Israel, Palestine, there actually is a good guy. Like, both sides, I'm sure, on the battlefield are doing some unfortunate things. But Israel was unprovokedly attacked at a peace raid.
Yeah.
I mean, like, they were literally like dancing for peace. Their government had proposed a peace treaty. They were dancing for
a two-party solution. Those people dancing there wanted a two-party solution, which is something Palestine and the Palestinians, from the river to the sea, means Israel doesn't exist. So that's not what they want at all.
That's the problem. And you actually said that really well. You said that better than I did. Like, it's important that people, the ordinary American viewer, realize this. The Arabs don't want peace with the Yahud. In general.
No.
I'm sure there are people that are well educated, that are very peaceful there that do, but about 95% of the Arab street just wants Israel gone.
Yep.
So Palestine has been offered about 9 two-state solutions. Now, this is already after the British, who were friends with the Hashemite kings, gave 3/4 of what was supposed to be Israel to the king of Jordan. Just on some general fuck you sort of, we're going to help our buddy here become one of the most powerful men in the world. Like, it was just really just a back of the hand to the Jews. After that, the Jews said, well, okay, we're legendarily a mercantile people. We can take what you give us and we can make that very successful. We get Jerusalem, Tel Aviv. Okay, sure, we'll do that. We'll make a deal with this other group of violent Arabs. Of course, doesn't describe everyone in the group. The Palestinians said no to that. And they're still saying no to that today. And that's the elephant in the room that these silly liberals will never recognize. My book is about a bunch more elephants that they will never recognize.
Yes, it is. So once again, we got to let you go. You're an important guy. You got things to do. But he is Wilfred Reilly. He's someone we will certainly have on again in the future if you'd like to jump on. He's an associate professor of political science over at Kentucky State University, which I have no idea how you are still swimming in those murky waters of higher education, but I respect you for doing it. And also, if you see on the screen right there, go to his Amazon page. It is Lies My Liberal Teacher Told Me. You can go read that. We talked about some of the things today. We touched on a bunch of things that he has in there. There's obviously much, much more. And go pick up his other books too. Hate Crime Hoax, which I read, which was fan-freaking-tastic. And Taboo. Also another very good book. And, go follow him on X. I'll put it on the screen right there at Will_the_B630. And I will say, if you have the time, if you still have a Facebook, go follow Wilfred on Facebook. I cry hysterically laughing at some of the shit that you put up and the questions that you put out there. They are just incredibly funny. And the way that you phrase things is so good. So go follow him there. Wilfred, thank you so much for coming on.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, gents.
And we will see you later, man. Have a good one.
Right. This is live. I'm going to click out here. Have a good one.
See
you.
All right. So, Dave, you can get us out of there. So we're going to hang on for a few more minutes. Everyone, thank you for staying on. We appreciate you guys all here watching on YouTube, watching on X and everything like that, watching on Facebook as well. We appreciate all you. And Wilfred's a great guest. Obviously, incredibly intelligent guy. Go pick up his book. Dave, do you have anything to say about, things we talked about with Wilfred?
I mean, it was a great conversation. We went in places that I didn't think we would go. Like, I did not think George Floyd was going to get brought up, but that was a good conversation. I mean, you need to talk about what the reality of situations that actually happen and
Wilfred's great with that too.
Yeah, and parse through everything that was just forced down as a narrative onto people and through the media and through just general social media. And how that could be astroturfed by a lot of things. And you just see things, you think that they're true, and all of a sudden you find out much later that they're not.
Yeah. And I like having smart guys like him on the show, right? Because he breaks things down in a way that, me and you aren't complete idiots. I'm mostly on the idiot spectrum. You're
I'm pretty stupid.
But like he explains things in such a way that's like, he's more learned. He's more researched. He has a lot of the statistics and facts to back up his claims as well, which always helps. So love having Wilfred on. So David, I want to get your opinion though, because we didn't talk much about the video we showed in the beginning.
I was actually going to bring that up. That's perfect.
Stuttering Craig, the Real Game Awards. Everyone, Dave, if you want to pull that back up real quick, we could throw it on the screen. But anyone that's a gamer that is watching right now, that's listening later, this is something I highly recommend. Not only do I recommend you go there, I recommend go to Side Scrollers. Go listen to that podcast. It's on YouTube. He's on every day, 12 o'clock Eastern, 11 o'clock, I believe Central. He's in Texas. It'll be Central. But go there. They talk all the gaming stuff and everything like that. But if you're a fan of gaming, I think this is a really cool opportunity to kind of have a say again, because you have your IGNs, your Kotakus, your Polygons, and, Wilfred touched on it. I didn't expect him to know about the Sweet Baby Ink stuff either. I was pretty dope that he brought that up. But this is definitely something that I think if you are a gamer, you should definitely check this out. And like I said, it's $30. You can go there, the tier, $30 a month to be a member, a voting member, and to nominate. You could just support, you could just do, just regular monthly support and suggestions for topics, and you can go above and beyond, right? You can go to the award show. You could do a bunch of cool stuff, but at minimum $30 a year. It's not a month, it's $30 a year. will get you the opportunity to be a voting member when the award comes and all that. So what do you think about this, Dave?
I like it. I like it as just something to try, because that's what Craig's really trying right now. I trust Craig. I just do. He's put on events before. He's done it in the past with probably less money than he's going to get now. I'm going to assume.
I think they already have 200 people, so they already have $5,000 towards this, and that was as of today's show.
Yeah. So, but I trust them to actually try to put on a good event, an event that's that actually means something to the people that are giving into it. And I like it as a start, as what we need to do in order to try to take some kind of semblance of power back from a bunch of people that don't actually even care about games.
And also, what gives me faith is he's involved, obviously, but also his board members that he announced so far. He has D-Day Cobra, Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers, who obviously is a successful person, right? Geeks and Gamers is massive. He is a, good first-person shooter himself. He has Mark the Cyborg, who is here we go. The board, Mark the Cyborg, who is a very good gamer. He also has Cabrutus over there, who started Sweet Baby Ink Detected and now DEI Detected, basically. And someone who's been attacked and obviously a gamer, right? He did it on Steam. And he said there's going to be more announced, but just right there, those 4 guys, that those are 4 individuals that are dedicated to the gaming space, right? And they are going to make it so that this event is put on in the best way possible. And guys like, obviously people that Stutter and Craig has on, like Yellow Flash and Razor Fist, and Melanie Mack was on today and things like that. Like they might not be directly involved with the board, but there are going to be people that are supporting this and that are putting their time into probably voting or maybe making topics, or even if they do presenters. I don't know how they're going to do it, but the people involved will be the people that, if you're on this side of the sphere and you're not a fucking psycho, are people that you probably watch on YouTube already and that you like and that you want. So I'm excited. In the next few weeks too, I feel like we're gonna have people who may be involved with that. I'm not going crazy about who we have, because you never know who comes on. People back out last second, so I don't want to throw that out there. But it's an exciting time right now, and especially like this jazzes me up to want to play some games. It really does, to want to pick up and play
some indie games. But
play some indie games, or even play some of some of the games that are going to be there, or just just whatever, so I can have an idea, because I'm considering jumping in here and putting my $30 and suggesting topics and becoming a voting member, because I do pay attention to the gaming world. I just don't freaking play them all the time.
Yeah. And funny enough, I mean, I'll say one more thing about Real Game Awards real quick.
Yeah.
I think this is just, if you can't support it, then you don't have to support it. Watching the shows are more than enough to try and support these types of things, just so people know that they have other people on their side.
Yeah.
But this is just a step that basically every single kind of medium needs to take now. And it doesn't have to be an award show, but some kind of step to try to get these activists out of these positions where they have some type of power, some type of lever where they can pull, to get people that actually enjoy and do things with the medium out of, because they always try to kick people that actually care about these things out.
Yeah.
You need to get them out and get everyone that actually cares about these things and actually wants to participate actually together and rule the thing that you enjoy.
And the beauty about this is all those psychos can participate. They just got to pay.
Yeah.
If you pay, you can vote. You know what I mean? If they pay their $30 a year, the same activists are there, can vote, they can suggest, they can pay, and they can see if their ideas match up with the other gamers. But they're not going to do it.
They would never do it, because they don't actually enjoy these things. They don't actually enjoy the medium. They don't actually want to participate with the people that have love for these things. That's all these activists that do are in the same kind of way.
Yep.
They never actually love the thing that they go into and that they infest and that they try to kick people out of. They never actually have any love for it. They have love for turning it into what they want to turn it into, which is always a part of the revolution. So that's what it's about for them.
Yep.
It is not about the actual thing. It is about turning it into what they want to turn it into. And it is entirely within your right to tell these people to go fuck themselves. And entirely within your way. Like when you're in D&D and someone tries to tell you an orc is black people, you're entirely within your right to tell them to go fuck themselves and to never take another goddamn step
gonna suggest
around
that
D&D
category
ever again.
So when I pay, it's going to be like the best projected racism in video gaming. And so that we can call out these fucking assholes that sit there and try to
That's
like,
not a bad one.
and
That's
it
not
could be not necessarily a game, but it could be like an article, or it could be a
Yeah.
clip from these gaming journalists, the
one.
best projected racism.
Yeah.
I think that could be a really good voting. And you can have like, and we had, what do you call it? Nate said before, Alyssa Mercanti.
Yep.
You know, you can have Mercanti over there, and we can have her doing her whole entire shtick. And I think that's a good one. I might suggest that one.
I want to talk to you about something really quickly.
Oh boy.
So there is a game coming out very soon. Very soon.
Is it going to hurt me?
A game? No, it hasn't hurt me. A game that I actually think, from all of my biases towards the people that are making this game and towards what they've done in the past, but a game that I actually think could come out and be pretty good, and that is the new college football game. I don't know how much you've seen of this game. It looks like it's doesn't look like Madden.
Doesn't look like gameplay, Rich Early? You want to throw up there?
I have this gameplay first look, but that's people actually playing the game. We can watch it if you want.
If you want, well, what do you have? Do you have something that just kind of shows gameplay like that?
Hold up. We'll watch this. We'll watch this because they talk about it, but we don't have to listen. We could just watch the game.
You can mute it or whatever, and we
can that's right. I have it muted, so you can pull that up. But this is Texas and Michigan, and the thing about this game is that it shows something that a lot of old games. That's pretty sweet. That's pretty sweet, Nate. IMDb leaks Sweet Baby Inc.'s upcoming games. You should not buy those. 100% should not buy those.
I saw that on I saw that.
Yeah, that's awesome. But the thing about this game that gives me hope, now I'm going to probably wait until people buy it and I actually see more of it. But the thing about this game that gives me hope is they actually have some care within the game. Like, you didn't see it there, very much of it, but for the game itself, the attention to detail, just the time expanded playoffs that they have, but the attention to detail within the audience, within the teams coming out, they all have their own actual like way that they come out onto the field. I'll actually skip to the Penn State one so you could see it because they have the mascot. But
you know what I kind of like? It's not that nice looking. It's not. Don't get me wrong. It's nice looking. It's an upgrade. But it's nice looking, but it's not to the point where they obviously gave a shit about the graphics more than they cared about the game.
Yeah.
It looks like they're trying to make a fun game. And you know what? It really just looks like a college football game.
Yes. And that's the thing. Like, this one of them explaining to it right now. You saw how they had that meter for the throwing?
Yeah.
If it goes into the red, if you go a little bit too far, it's an inaccurate throw. And that was an inaccurate throw. It's that. It's not 20 feet in the air. It's behind them. And then it's something that they can catch. But if they get it, it's something that they might not. It's something where if they get hit, they're going to drop him more likely.
And I like the adjustment.
Good.
I like the adjustment animation there too, because it's a realistic looking adjustment animation.
Yeah. And like that looks pretty good right there. The way he moved through it.
Move through.
Exactly. Like they have the stick movement like they had in 14, like they had in 13 to 14. So watch this throw.
Sideline.
Absolutely gorgeous.
So my thing is, can we throw a fade yet? Like a real fade at the end zone?
Like
end zone fade.
Throw that, then probably. I didn't see it in this gameplay.
I want to see an end zone fade.
I'll actually
that's cool. They're going on.
That's Penn State.
The attention to detail from our presentation team was second to none. You could see it. This Penn State run out is unbelievable. The lighting in the tunnel, to the pom-poms in the crowd.
Donovan, is this pretty accurate?
Very accurate. Very accurate. And they got the We Are Penn State.
You can hear the We Are Penn State chant.
Yeah. That's very accurate. This is awesome.
With their fight song.
My goodness.
I got to turn the volume up on mine. I want to hear this.
But that's the thing, is that everything I have seen from this game has given me hope that it's actually going to be a fun game to play. Then there might be issues, but it looks like it's going to be a game that you could pick up and enjoy.
Yeah.
Like the recruiting in Dynasty, you actually can text players. You could do certain, like you call them and stuff like that. And it's like, I think it's allotted time, like how it used to be in some older games.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to show this to you. I wanted to show, because I said, I talked to Joe about this as well. And Joe's like, Dave, I don't want to have hope for it. I'm like, everything that's coming out, there's care in it.
Here's the bottom line. Gameplay decent if they have a great Dynasty mode. if they have a good recruiting mode, if they have that, if I could take my Marist Red Foxes or my Rutgers Scarlet Knights and make them a championship team, we'll see.
But
Nate G over here, our buddy Nate, same here, Mr. Hell of College Football, just in time for the expanded playoffs. Absolutely.
Which they have.
Which Florida State should have been in last year.
Shador is the highest rated QB. That is
Here's
true.
The thing, though. Why is that a worry? After last year, listen. Their problem was not Shador Sanders. Their problem was they had a negative offensive line and the worst defense in high school. Like, there wasn't like they had the worst defense in high school football, okay? Their problem last year was not Shador Sanders. And Shador, I know, gets some things, but they were awful in defense. They couldn't stop anybody. And we saw that in game 1 when they gave up 40-plus points to a decent team that went to the national championship the year before, but weren't great. Shador was fantastic all year. Even when he struggled, he still was poised. So Shador's going to be, all things considered, he's the number 1 pick next year.
Also, I will say this, even if they might be dick riding Shador a little bit, the player ratings can be a little fucked. If the gameplay is good, if everything else is good, then I'm fine with it. Quinn Ewers and Carson Beck are way better. I mean, you can make that argument, but but my thing is like that's fine. I'll argue, like, you guys can argue with that. I'll argue with that. That doesn't matter.
That's okay.
As long as the game is good, the player ratings I don't necessarily care about a lot.
And the beauty of it, Nate, is now that before, back in the day with these college games, you were stuck with those ratings, right? Now they'll adjust it mid-year. If Shador goes and those 4 picks, they probably will. If he goes and those 4 picks and then the next week those 3, he'll probably take a few hits. I wouldn't doubt it. And, I think it would be, it would be cool.
But you could take like the throwing meter away. You could take, because they have this thing called wear and tear, where if you get hit hard, like it'll affect your QB's arm if he gets hit on the arm, on his throwing arm.
If he gets a concussion, does he have scrambled eggs for brains and is
maybe
fined if they don't take him out? Do you get fined as a coach for not taking out your concussed quarterback?
I'm not sure, but
fat man.
But it affects certain things, and like you could take that out. You could also eliminate wear and tear. You don't have to play with it.
That's
so
cool.
It's
like Snake Eater, but
I just wanted to bring this to your attention that basically everything I've seen from this game has given me hope that it actually can be a game you could play and enjoy and not fucking hate EA for.
It does look good as long as the ball spins the right way. We have a good start, but I just want to see more decently fit offensive and defensive linemen complain that they are slobs in college football. I forget which one it was. I forget where he was from, but he showed himself off. He's like, I'm not that big in a college football game. He's just like this fat Super Mario looking slob. And he's like, come on, guys. I'm not that big. So, but it does look good.
I will say this. I know for like my player, whatever, the Road to Glory, their Road to Glory doesn't start in high school.
Okay, good.
Doesn't start in high school. I like starting in high school. I mean, if you pick like 8 games, it can get annoying at some point, but I like starting in high school. It's nice. But that doesn't start in high school, so that's a little bit whatever. And I was going to say there's one more thing that was a little bit of annoying. Oh,
I feel like
because of NIL, you might not be able to like create your own players for a team and stuff like that because of NIL. But that's also like if they're kind of stuck in that process, I can't necessarily
I can't knock them. They're trying to keep the game alive.
Like there's certain things that might not be as the same as before, but they harken. It seems like they harken back to a lot of older games.
But you know what though, the Road to Glory. What I like with the Road to Glory, if you can kind of choose where your status is. Are you a redshirt freshman? Are you a under you know what I mean? Like without that high school baseline to get you there.
Yeah.
And you pick
you can start off as a certain star. You can start off as a certain star.
And that would be helpful.
Exactly what you're saying. You can choose your star rating.
That helps not having the high school thing, right? Because the high school thing kind of gave you your star rating afterwards. If you can kind of select, that's selecting your difficulty, right? I'm coming in as a 2-star. I'm going to Michigan as a 2-star. I got to work my ass off, right? Mm-hmm. But it's like if I want to go in as a 4-star blue chip and go into Rutgers as like their best recruit ever, you know what I mean? Like you could do. I feel like that helps that they gave you something there.
Yeah. So here's what they have. I know I keep talking about that.
That's okay. Listen, it's okay. It's a good. Can I go as a 9-binary 2-spirit in the Road to Glory?
No, and that's a good thing.
I'm boycotting the game now. If I cannot be a dragon. Oh, if I'm on UAB, I better be able to be a fucking Dragon King.
Oh, fuck. I stopped sharing my bed.
You suck.
But
I'm on UAB. I need to be. That's the UAB Dragons, right? I need to be a Dragon kid.
Well, right now it's Appalachian State, but UAB was up there. So they have the 12-team playoff.
Yep.
Their recruiting is in depth. I could try to get over to it. They have the transfer portal, and there's Team Builder. Team Builder's back.
Oh, that's
as a thing.
I like Team Builder.
So, I mean, just look at this shit. Here, I'll just fucking play it. Whatever.
In the background there.
Yeah. But that's the thing. Just stop showing the gameplay.
And obviously, like the
recruiting
prestige is probably back and stuff like that. Where
media, DM the player, context, like it's like an old school.
Do they have any racist tweets when you search social media?
Maybe. But like, I mean, just attention to detail and all these things, man. It's killer. It's awesome. It really is. And
are all
these
players,
things can change.
Do they have their names in the game now?
All the ones that opted
in.
If they opted in, yes. Like Arch Manning just opted in.
That's going to be fun. That's the portal. That'll be interesting.
Yeah.
So I wonder, can you turn off the portal? Because I don't know. Hated some of that type of stuff because sometimes the CPU just goes crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But you know what though? Maybe it's right because the portal is ridiculous. So
yeah. And I have no idea if you could turn that off or on. But here, they might not jump into the coaching trees. But as a coach, you have 3 different things, and you cannot max out any of them. Like, you cannot max out all of them.
Oh, really?
You can only go you can go far in one of them, but you can't do all of them.
So you can't be Nick Saban.
So you either have to, what's their bigot rating? High if they're a good coach. So you have to choose offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators that either strengthen your game or better your weaknesses. So I don't know. I'm gushing over the game, but it's because
pretty good. So what they're releasing right now is good. Yeah,
and that'd be awesome if it's good.
I mean, here's the thing: you give us a good way to recruit. You give us a good coaching glory,
and they have coaching carousel back.
And James Madison,
yeah,
they went deep. Holy shit! Is it every D1 schools in it?
I don't know if it's every D1. I'm not entirely sure, but it's a ton of teams. And
that was always the value of college basketball over college football. The college basketball was more deep, but also a lot less people with graphics.
The FCS teams in the game are teams from like YouTubers that made their own like team builder things. They gave them like respect. Like I watched Not the Expert. Yeah, so like the Pandas are in it. They have their logo. They have they have all these different teams.
I want the Trenton Tiny Turtles back. Damn it! Give me my Trenton Tiny Turtles.
They don't. It's not Tiburon. They don't have their logos. But yeah, I don't know. I just want to bring this up just because, especially if you're going to play games again. Like, look at that, man. They have all their fucking intros. They have like it looks great. Like that's not something that you see.
I'm with you there, Nate. I stopped playing Madden a long time ago.
Yeah, as you should.
Because I wasn't paying
Madden 25 doesn't look good.
Updates and a bad mechanic transition.
Yeah.
But this one, here's the thing. If it could be fun, and you know what? Here's the thing. EA is not going to do this, but they should. What they should do from now on is pay 70 or whatever it is. AAA games are expensive now, right? Mm-hmm. Pay $70 for the game. Give me $20 a year for roster updates. And if you want our new things that we're adding, now pay a full 60. You could pay a full 60 to get changes like our upgrades, but if you just want a roster update,
the base game has been completely
it's been completely revamped.
Yeah, and that's the thing that it has never. This is me speculating completely as to why this game looks so much better than all the fucking Maddens we've had recently. But my speculation is that it's a different dev team. It is, but my speculation is that they probably had longer to work on this. It doesn't matter because they've probably been working on
14. It really does in a lot of ways.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is they've probably been working on this shit for a while until they had the time to actually make a college football game again. Yeah. So they probably had all these, like, it might not be a ton of time, but it's better than a yearly release. So they've had the time to think about what they could put in the game and work on what they could put in a college football game.
And I would love that. And that's why I say my roster updates. Don't give me a new game every year. Give me a new game every 2 to 3 years.
Give me like a patch and then 2 to 3 years.
Give me charge me for roster updates. And maybe here's an extra $15. We added this little feature, right? Or we changed this in the gameplay. This hit is now different. We're going to upgrade that. So here, give us 25 instead of, you know what I mean? And then when the new game comes out in 3 years, okay, brand new game.
Yep.
But don't do Call of Duty. Don't do what Madden does. Don't do what 2K does. Don't charge us for roster updates and a usually shitty thing, not a good change most of the time.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's the way, and especially with live service games, you can make this kind of a live service game. And sports games were the original live service. They were updating.
To say live service is a little bit of a a taboo. So you might not want to call it live
service. It was kind of the original live service. They were updating player ratings constantly. They were updating trades. Like the rosters were legit when you went to go do exhibition and restarting things like that. So, I mean, it could work if they're smart, and we'll see. We'll see. But Dave, you got me sufficiently hyped. I will yak about potentially playing video games again, and then I won't do it.
Completely accurate, Nate. Look, we yearly did WWE games. Yep. Yeah, you're right. Same thing with UFC. It's happened with every game that's done that shit.
Yeah, SmackDowns. And the thing is that's sad too. The first 2K was actually really promising. First WWE 2K was
I remember
really
the first
good.
2K was actually not
bad. They
bad.
had a huge roster.
There's a couple 2Ks that weren't actually bad. But
yeah, they had a massive roster, and it kind of had that same feel where you got the meter up, you did your finisher. It doesn't always win, but you have to get enough damage. It kind of kept that same SmackDown script that SmackDown established, and now they've just gone to shit.
Yeah, but and I wanted to share that with you, especially if you want to. Especially if you want to play games again. I feel like if that's good, you could waste hours in that.
Do you want me to get divorced and be a bad dad?
No, but
I'm going to tell your nieces this is your fault.
This is my fault. Yeah, 100%.
When we're at divorce court, be like, blame Uncle David.
Blame college football. Blame Uncle David.
Blame Uncle David for showing me college football on July 10th. Exhibit A. It's his fault. All right. That's a good note to wrap it up there, Dave. Thank you for sharing that. Again, Wilfred Reilly, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate everyone that watched. He's an awesome guy. Go out and buy his book. Go out and buy all 3 of his books. They're all really good. And if you heard here today, he's a smart guy. You're getting a lot of good information, a lot of well-researched information over there. And Take Games Back is now the Real Game Awards. Please go support that and Stuttering Craig and Side Scrollers. And we'll be back next week.
Yep.
And we're excited. And we'll see everyone then. Go follow us on all the socials. Not Talking Novels. What am I talking about? The Alex Cuesta Show. Go follow us again there. And
thank you, Nate.
Yep. Thanks, Nate. We appreciate that. We always appreciate you watching. And we'll be back